Welcome back, everybody, to the Laugh Cry Club. I'm Joy.
I'm Rebecca.
Hello. We are here to talk about the halftime show.
Yes. Wasn't it amazing?
Oh my gosh. We can't not talk about that right out of the gate. But really quick side note, in case you're new, we are licensed therapists. We've been in the field for over 20 years. We like to normalize the human experience and we talk all sorts of things mental health. So that is kind of our shtick, but we always love to hear from you as well. If you ever need to submit a question, we would be happy to answer it for you. Today, we thought we would talk about music, how much music is healing, what we thought of the halftime show, having a feel-good moment. So where do you want to start, Rebecca? Like, what was your first impression? Because I know last week when we recorded, obviously it was like right before the show, so we were like so excited. And these episodes come out like on Monday, so we're a little bit late in the aftermath, but everyone's still talking about it.
Everybody is still talking about it. There's memes about it. I just actually watched the whole halftime performance again just yesterday. Wow. I guess my first words is it was just beautiful. Just the visual of it. And I felt like I was transported to Puerto Rico. The sugarcane fields was so cool. And then it was just
like how it started from the get-go.
Yes!
I was like, this is cool. Like the second, because it really is. And I think this has started with a few halftime shows before where the camera is shooting angles for the people at home, not necessarily for the people there. So like if you're going to a football game, and I'll give you a little fun fact about me is I was actually I was in the Super Bowl halftime show in Super Bowl 30. Don't do the math and was this like Super Bowl 60?
This is awesome. We have like Super Bowl royalty here. Like,
we really do. So I was in Super Bowl 30 halftime show with the Diana Ross. If you think about the iteration and the evolution of halftime shows, it really was for the person at the event, people that were in the stadium. Yeah. They would have like people flipping cards in the stadium where it like spelled out something like that's what our halftime show was. And we had so many dancers on the stage. And it was really, the performance was not for the viewer at home, where I think the evolution, since Jay-Z's company has taken it over, you see more of now the camera's going right straight to the artist and them taking you through this set that is almost like a music video where you get to feel so intimate because they realize there's more viewers watching this at home than it is in stadium. So I find that very fascinating. And this one, the way that they shot it was like we were just watching a music video in real time.
Yeah, because I'm so glad you mentioned that too, because I feel like Kendrick Lamar last year was very much, it was very much for us at home.
Yes, it was similar.
Like I was in his world and in a music video.
Yeah, and they did the same thing with the Weeknd. The Weeknd was also shot the same way. So I see this pattern of how effective that is for people at home, because you're not getting like clips and being like, oh, I wish I was there. Like you feel like you had a better seat in the house than actually being at the Super Bowl.
Right, because I've actually seen videos of people taking of it there, and it's like, I had a much better view.
And
why would I spend like $1 million to go sit at that game?
Totally. Don't get me wrong. California looked beautiful weather and Green Day looked like a blast.
Yes.
But so just right out of the gate, that was my first comment was I do love that they're doing that. And the sugarcane opening was my first vibe. Oh, we're in for something really cool.
Yeah. The whole thing was so cool. And then when he did a trust fall off the building, I'm like, what? That's not an easy thing to do.
No, he just and they also dropped him through a ceiling.
I'm like
that was probably really shocking. I'm sure he landed on something nice, soft and fluffy, or maybe like a fun foam pit. But I still was like, those are things like when Lady Gaga jumped off the stage and landed in a pit and caught a football. You know what I mean? That. Mm-hmm. That's not easy to do. They're out there doing some really risky stunts. But just to kind of really call it out that this felt like there was a lot of buildup for this collectively, as I would say, the world stage watching this, that there's been so much buildup because we have so much division, specifically political division, that there was a lot of talk ahead of time of like, is this going to be a moment where he says something against this current administration, right? And so everyone was kind of almost hoping that this would be like a big middle finger to our current president in the United States. I think the Grammy speech, where we talked about this a few episodes ago, where he was like, and it was kind of fun because he was alluding to the same message that he put up at the end of the Super Bowl halftime show, which was love is greater than hate, huge on the screen at the end of the Super Bowl. And he alluded to that, and he said the same thing at his Grammy speech, which was super cool because looking back, you're like, oh, it was a little Easter egg of his halftime show message. And so I love that historically he's always done this. Like, I've seen plenty of interviews of him where he just speaks in Spanish. Like and I'm going to try to like keep my brain in one focus because there's so much to this, but I just very much appreciate him for not feeling pressured. He doesn't seem like he feels pressured to speak English. If he doesn't want to speak in English, he just starts speaking Spanish. He's done that on late night shows. He's like, I don't know how to say this in English, and he'll just say it in Spanish because he's like, it is to me that comfort level. And that symbolically is so powerful for a celebrity of his caliber, for everyone watching who maybe feels pressured in this society to feel like they have to know English in order to exist or in order to like be socially accepted, that he is the epitome of being like, we don't have to do that anymore.
I'm going to be my authentic self. Take it or leave it.
Well,
it's not hurting anybody.
Right. But not even that, but like, do you think about like when we go to countries where we don't speak the language, people from the United States will go to another country and want that country to speak English.
Yeah, we do.
I lived in France for a stint when I was in college. I did a study abroad program, and I was dead set on going there, being like, I don't want to speak a word of English. Like, I really want to learn the language. And that was very powerful for me to really understand how important it is to immerse yourself in a culture. And I know it's scary, but sadly, we are the only country that doesn't learn. It's not normal to learn a bunch of different languages. Almost everyone else in the world learns multiple languages. So that was the other thing that came to mind, was how important it is for us to, broad picture here, even from a mental health perspective, is broadening our minds to think differently. And that's what I was just so refreshed by, because something that I posted about on TikTok this week was more about like in-group and out-group bias, and how we're faced with really looking at that, of the outlash of people being like, he didn't speak, and I couldn't understand a word. I mean, the critics were so stupid, but like, it was all in Spanish. And part of me wanted to be like, do you understand any songs in English? Like, most people, if they sing a song in English.
Let me use me as an example. I do not know a lot of words that people say in a song, because I'm often singing them in the car, and my spouse is like, gives me the head turn of like, what? So yeah, I just kind of make up words. So it doesn't really matter what people say.
And so I would argue that what people really are saying is, we feel uncomfortable because it's not in English. Why don't we just go ahead and say that, instead of being like, I couldn't understand a word. And so that criticism was just, to me, it was really trying to pick at anything, grasping at straws to criticize, because it wasn't about the performance. It wasn't about the music. It was about the us versus them, in-group versus out-group bias.
Yeah, completely.
But kind of winding this back a little bit, is the other reason why Rebecca and I wanted to talk about this, is it really felt like such a collective healing to watch, for people who can really, A, for people who needed it, and B, for people who, well, I think we all needed it, but like, it was such a collective breath of fresh air, because really what I was expecting, honestly, was this to be not like a backlash, but more of like a protest song, kind of like how Green Day's protest songs, which are amazing and beautiful, and I love a protest song. Bruce Springsteen just put one out, like protest songs all day long. I was more or less expecting that from this performance in some way. And what it was exactly what he said at the Grammy speech, which was love. Everything is about love. It is, there is going to be nothing that you can argue that I am pushing against. And I am, more importantly, I am trying to show all of you the beauty of this culture, the beauty of people, that we are all the same, from the smallest little things, the old men playing dominoes, the fruit stands, the people working construction, really, truly just this was specific to Puerto Rican culture, but more importantly of like, okay, so you're not going to come to us to understand our culture. I'm going to bring it to you. If you see it, maybe you'll have a little bit more softness in your heart. And that is it was such a cool performance in that way, because every single thing made me feel like, ooh, what's next? What's he going to show us next? And then someone got freaking married on the stage. Yes. Like, how can you argue with this? Like, this is beauty. This is exactly who we are as people. And I think that's also why it was so powerful, is because we saw ourselves in humanity.
I thought it was such a wonderful human experience. And for all these people that say, like, I didn't understand a lick of that. Well, you're not using all of your senses. I want to say that I know a little bit of Spanish. I know certain words, but I could listen to the intent in his voice, the movements of the dancers, and the visuals that were provided me to understand what was happening. I didn't need to know the exact words. I still was able to understand. And I think that's what's so important about music, dance, because it's not necessarily about what's being said. It's what the visual is, what you're seeing, the interpretation of that. Music and dance has been around forever. I think I was looking at, like, what was the first time like music was kind of recorded as being a thing in our history, and it was like at 1000 BC. That's a long time ago that music is recorded to like being a thing. And so it's been present through all of our lives. And I just challenge people, open your senses. And it's even similar to therapy. Like in therapy, people say words, but I'm not always, I mean, I do listen to your words, but I look at your
body language.
Yeah. Yes.
We can tell, by the way.
The intensity in your voice.
The intensity in your voice.
Where your eyes are going.
Hesitations. Yeah, we can sense that. And it's because we have really paid attention to that ourselves, but also being in tune with other people and having honed in on emotional intelligence. So this does take a wider stance. We could look at this as just a performance, just a halftime show, but we also know that that's not the case given the state that we're in this country. The fact that everyone had such love and adoration for Benito and the performance and who he seems to be as a person is just like, I really love my culture. I love people. I don't take myself too seriously. And I have better things to do than to turn this into a focus of, I'm going to talk to the political climate directly. It was so indirect that we all walked away being like, oh my gosh, we feel so good. And that is really what we needed because the administration makes us feel so bad. And that is it's a celebration. And that is what I think he wanted, was like, I want to make everyone feel really good because we have been feeling so low. And that was the stage that he used in such a beautiful, beautiful way. I love that Lady Gaga showed up and she looked like she was having the time of her life. Let me say this too. I'm sure our audience is like on the side of like, they loved it or they at least liked it. But the critics that I heard were really mostly the people that are afraid of really liking anything, because if you like anything related to a left-leaning side, you're leaving your party line, whatever.
Isn't it interesting? Like music has become, I mean, I guess music can be divisive, or it has been throughout history. That's why there's music for everybody, but it's become even more so. It's like, I love what he did, that it was a celebration, his culture and other Hispanic cultures. He like reclaimed it in a way. And he's like, look, you have been weaponized our culture and our identity against us.
Yes.
We actually are very beautiful people, and it's very beautiful. And guess what? You all come to vacation in our countries. You know, like Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory. He's a United States citizen, but all the other countries named off, we all go there to enjoy it. Mm-hmm. Even the people that are upset about him singing in Spanish, they go there as well. Mm-hmm. But I just like that how it was really, culture was celebrated.
The reason why I also feel like this hits so deep with us is that, to your point, there's been so many people that haven't felt seen, and this was a way for so many people to feel seen. So I've been watching so many TikToks of all the places that he listed off at the end where they were like, they listed Canada, they listed Honduras, they listed, like he listed all the places in North America and South America. It was so cool because everyone just wants to feel seen and included. The United States feels this, because of this administration, like has this entitlement, the in versus out group, right? So everyone who's not in, you're out. That it was so un-American. The irony that I see in that is there is nothing more American than a melting pot of people. We would be so freaking boring if it was just one bland race of, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Well, it's not even ours, really.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like, we're already on stolen land. Hello.
Exactly.
We already stole it.
I'm not going to waste time trying to understand why people don't get that, other than what I go to and where my mind goes to. And I'd be curious to hear what your take is, because I'm constantly trying to rethink what we talked about, like with Adam Grant, of like trying to understand people and really understand more than I am trying to be mad about it, because like Bad Bunny said, love is greater. So why are we so fearful of a Super Bowl halftime show being in Spanish? Like, Megyn Kelly lost her ever-loving mind. Like, lost her mind.
Lost her mind. I'm like, wait, isn't she the person that was part of like the Me Too movement and like a whole like what? I was like, what is happening? Like, losing
there was
your
a whole
mind
movie made about it.
Spanish. Yeah. It's based in fear. It's like resource guarding, essentially. I don't know. That's a thing we talk about with dogs or animals. But,
yeah. No, that's a very fair point.
They think it needs to be for them in a certain way. And it's just fear of losing control of, I don't know what.
Well, I know what it is. It's all related to politics.
Yeah.
That has dominated and taken over way more than it ever has been, at least in my lifetime, in terms of the in-group versus out-group. And because we have such a horrible leader that makes people feel unwelcome, the hate just bubbles to the surface. So anything that gives anything credit to love and acceptance, at least for, Megyn Kelly's sake, is agreeing with the side that they're not supposed to be aligned with, which then we start to lose our own identity and opinions. Because if I am relying on, like, I have to stick to this quote unquote side, but I actually don't agree with this, but if I say otherwise, then I'm straying away from my side. That's a really dangerous way to live. You lose all anonymity. I mean, talk about happiness. Like, you have no anonymity. You have no opinion that's actually yours. You have to kind of like think first and go with the majority of what other people are saying. That's a slippery slope.
You know, we bring this back to mental health, that people are thinking discomfort equals harm, but it doesn't. Discomfort doesn't mean you're being harmed. Our system sometimes feels like we're being harmed because, remember, we have the fight, flight, freeze, we've talked numerous times on this podcast just about our brain and how we are still like operating on some old systems, like, because being like hunter-gatherers, like you're afraid, is that a scary animal in the bush and I should be afraid? But what we don't necessarily have that. And so what people are doing, I think, is thinking like, ooh, if I'm uncomfortable, that's a bad thing. It's not actually. That's where we have to start looking at and getting regulated around we have to regulate the dysregulation that we feel. And that just because you feel unsettled doesn't mean it's bad. But right now, I think a lot of people are thinking that.
The snap judgments. So what I would argue, or what I would recommend, is if people can accept the challenge of thinking about how they're feeling about it. Maybe it's uncomfortable. Maybe there were some parts that made you feel uncomfortable. And instead of going to a snap judgment, which can be very dangerous, and that's where our bias kicks in. Because we all have bias. And anyone out there who's like, I'm not biased, I don't see color, you are completely missing some really critical things about your brain, about how you operate. We all have bias. It is unavoidable. So accepting that is the first step. And then recognizing when it's happening. But we've somehow misunderstood trying to understand with just compliance an agreement, because I think that's what people who maybe are extreme on quote unquote either side. And I think that's another issue is everything just all of a sudden is grouped into politics now versus, or at least that's what I feel, is I feel like everything's grouped into politics, and social media has played a big part of that. And, so I can no longer watch something. I'm constantly like, is this a Trump thing or is this just a normal, I think it does us a disservice because we're no longer thinking for ourselves. And, the rhetoric that I hear from all the politicians, it's like they always have an agenda behind it. That is their role. That's their job. But all of a sudden we've all fallen in line to take that same stance when I'm like, I'm not a career politician. Like, why should we be, you know what I mean? So it's a weird slippery slope that I think we've all fallen into of this very black and white thinking that is a big part of the problem we're in now, that people are so afraid of just thinking for themselves. They are going to default to the in-group versus out-group. What do you think?
I do think it is. I mean, you look at like certain products feel maybe politicized right now, different places of shopping, which I totally get. I mean, I definitely, I'm choosing where to spend my money. And I think back in the day, like when I was growing up, I don't know that we all had that kind of deep insight into these things, or we're even thinking about that. But the internet has also exploded. When I was younger, like I didn't have an internet.
Yeah, you didn't have that.
I had a phone on the wall.
Yeah.
Right.
We had a phone on the wall and we had two choices of where to shop. Right?
Yeah. And it was all about what was the best price for your family, right?
Exactly.
That's all that anybody was looking at. I just think the amount of information is so readily available now, and it's just we're just flooded all the time. It's actually such a disservice to us as a human race that I feel like we've gotten maybe too smart for our own good. Like we're like reducing ourselves in some ways, and it's so sad. I am curious though, when we talk about these in-groups versus out-groups, like what do you propose? Like what do we do about this? Like how do we make this better? How do we make ourselves feel better?
It's hard not to get angry. That is something I've been working on, because it's hard for me to look around and see all of this hate and people labeling and people being prejudiced and people not being nice and kind, and me wanting to stand up for the justice of it all and to get angry at these people and shake them and be like, how are you not seeing this? How can you be so hateful? That I know doesn't work, because you can't bump up against Bad Bunny said, I'm going to say it again. You can't, look how effective his halftime show was, because he did nothing related to hate.
It was the most watched halftime show in history.
That should tell you about how powerful inclusion is. When you invite everyone to the table, it's going to create, I don't know what that does for I would argue that Puerto Rican restaurants, or maybe it opened up avenues for people to be like, I'm going to support this, local business down the street that serves Puerto Rican. I mean, whatever it is, power of that should tell us that love, including people and inviting everyone to the table, yields positive results. So what I'm trying to do, when you ask the question about the in-group versus out-group, is to look at this from a place of I can't get mad at it. I really want to get mad because I can't believe people are acting this way. I understand that does nothing. So that's where I'm just trying to be all right, I need to pause versus being reactive. And this is a psychology thing. This is something that we do a lot of times in therapy, where before you, especially if you're prone to anger and prone to having blow-ups and you have a short fuse, that you can learn to pause before you react. Pause, take a beat before you automatically react, because our automatic reactions are based off of patterns that we've developed our entire life. So it takes that pause, think, to be where's the bias here? And because you and I are pretty self-aware and we've done this work for a long time, but I think a lot of people out there listening probably are too, where I'll walk down the street and if I see someone, I'll immediately have a judgment about people. And I always have to tell myself, what are my biases here? And what are my, that's a way that I practice it. I don't know if it's if the sun's not rising and I'm walking my dogs and I see maybe a male figure in a coat versus a female walking, I have judgments about that, because I'm the male for me feels more unsafe. These are things that you're trying. Now I understand we all have to be aware of our surroundings, starting with just the judgments that you have about people. In-group versus out-group bias is, I see it every single day. Look at Fox News constantly.
Yes.
like trying so hard to push a narrative in group, out group. It's so frustrating, Rebecca, because to what end? What is the harm in giving people some love? What is so bad about that? And I don't want to keep bringing it back to Megyn Kelly, but because she had such a very loud, I mean, she was
screaming. She was
screaming and says like some really racist shit.
Very racist. So I look at this as people throwing tantrums like we would see a child. And
there you go.
The louder you are, it seems like maybe the more visibility you get or attention. Like that's what we think.
Yes, that's actually
the loudest
true.
person in the room, obviously.
The loudest
gets everybody
person
attention because it's a disruption. But that I look at it as these people. So this is kind of an alternative take. You know, I want to give for people that I think it can be very scary, all the harsh rhetoric and all the things that they're doing that are terrible, the racism, all the isms, right? But when I look at it from my perspective as a therapist and what I know about human behavior, I'm like, whoa, they are really focused on trying to keep something. Like they're so scared of losing some important resource. They feel like they have more of a right than others, and they're afraid that's why DEI was rolled back, because they're so afraid, like, I'm not getting a job because somebody of color got a job because of the color of their skin. Not true, but that's what they think. They are so fearful, and when you're fearful, you make decisions that shut people out and you insulate yourself further. And so they're going with their in group, which is like, you believe me, you like me too. You're a racist also. Okay, awesome. We can align here. And that's why they group so much together, because it's like, I have to have somebody else validate my feelings, because the majority of people are not validating all those feelings. And so that's how I look at it. Yes, I get angry about it as well, but I really think the majority does not think like them, and they're just the loudest and getting, throwing fits because that's how they stay relevant, because really they don't have anything important to talk about.
Right. And because the news media, political figures, they have a stage. So that is obviously the loudest. They have the access to have the opinions just megaphoned out to everybody. Just like I've said a few times before, that anyone, if you have a beef with someone, if you have anger towards something, if you're struggling to pay your bills, if you're worried about the border, whatever it is, like, look, they know how to get you. They glob onto that fear and they make it louder.
They're using you.
They're using you.
It's because it's a strategy. They know. They have a bunch of psychologists too. They have a whole bunch of psychologists that study human behavior, and that's why when you look at midterm elections, they love to throw hot issues on the ballot, some anti-trans legislation type stuff. Let's put that on there, because
let's make them real mad.
And then they all come out of their houses and they vote. And while everybody else is busy because they're like, the economy and I got to go to work. It's really sad, because that's how I look at it. I'm like, wow, they're just all, being used as part of this strategy. It's a strategy with humans. And
that you nailed it.
At the expense of other people.
You nailed it, because that is what this administration particularly knows for a fact, and tries to push that button all the time.
They don't really care.
They don't.
What they care about is money and power.
Please show me the proof otherwise. They could not care less about humans. They could not care less. They care about money and they care about power. That has been proven and shown time and time again with this administration. So I think you nailed it, where it's like, that is what really makes me sad, is that people are being taken advantage of, and they think their boyfriend loves them and they're just being used.
Guess
you know what I mean?
Your boyfriend is going to, skip out on you after this meal and leave you with the bill.
Exactly.
Yeah. Totally. It's going to be a really big bill.
It's a huge bill. And
it's a beautiful bill.
You love to feel like loved and like your ego stroked, and like they're just romanticizing you and love bombing you. They don't care about you at all. They're like, you keep giving me that money, I am going to tell you what you want to hear. And so the in-group versus out-group, that is why it continues to be loud, is because people are being used and they don't even know it.
They don't even know
So
it.
I said this before with the in-group versus out-group, is like identity equals safety. So that's why they're hanging on for dear life, because if you don't have a Fox News identity or a Megyn Kelly identity, then you lose a lot of followers and you lose a lot of money. So you've got all these people riled up. You've got all these followers that are yesing you. Yes, yes, yes. Like. And if you change your tune, that all goes bye-bye. You know, we live in a world where you get canceled, you're done ski.
Yeah. I saw this really cool thing that happened. I guess Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, was holding a press conference for, I think it was about Planned Parenthood and some other women's health things. I didn't see the first part of it, but I guess the reporters were asking about probably other things than what they were there for, which was about Planned Parenthood and women's health. His wife interrupted the press conference and came and took the mic and said, okay, we have a fabulous group of women up here that have so much to share, and that's why we're here today. And just kind of really schooled the media and the press to be like, you all want to keep talking about other things. Let's talk about why we're actually here for this press conference, and spelled it out why they were there. And like, please, let's focus on what's happening right here. And I love that so much.
It's so important that we have these conversations and look at the things that are making us uncomfortable. So if you are someone who didn't like the halftime show, think about specifically thinking or challenging this may feel like a threat, because when you challenge your beliefs, sometimes you have to be like, oh, maybe I was wrong. All right, so let's take that a step further. Why is being wrong uncomfortable for you?
Right.
And then you might be like, because I mean, none of us like to be wrong. And so then it goes to an ego thing. So if you're hanging on for dear life because your ego doesn't like to be wrong, or it threatens your masculinity, or it threatens your stability, or it threatens what you believe as a religion that you've spent. I mean, it's a sunk cost fallacy. I've put so much time into this one belief that questioning it crumbles my entire identity. Well, guess what? I would say it actually improves your identity, because now you're a critical thinker. And that to me is always going to yield great results because you're a more open-minded person. But if you're just at least noticing the labeling reflex, that is a step one. Just notice if you're labeling and why you're doing it. And does it make if it makes you feel good to like do an in-group versus out-group thing, is that rooted in truth? Is it rooted in something kind?
Yeah, it's something I also think about with the halftime shows. If it bothered you, maybe think about why. Ask yourself, why would this performance have been healing to other people? Because then it gets you to think about other people. And it's like, oh, well, they saw people like them. They heard their language. They saw their story. They felt seen or heard. You know, it's just ask yourself these really important questions. And why did it bother you? But I like that.
Yeah.
Like, why was it healing to somebody else? Like, why did they love it?
But even just being uncomfortable with, I've heard other criticisms about the dance moves, and like, yeah, we could have a whole other podcast about people being uncomfortable with sexuality and sex on TV. I mean, look, I understand it was a national performance and there's kids watching. I mean, one of my friends who has younger kids, she was like, well, that was not family friendly. I'm like, yeah, I get it. Like,
but was it? I mean,
some of the, like at the beginning, of course, when they're like twerking and their literal butts are in the camera.
Okay.
I'm like, yeah, that's, like
I missed that. I was like,
yeah,
oh,
the camera was like, I mean, I have no qualms with it, but I could understand as a parent, like I could understand, like, you don't want twerking camera right in the camera. But I also I thought it was great because I understand the culture of it, and I understand the song was about like he wants women to dance without feeling like they're in danger. That whole criticism of like, okay, aside from like the family friendly thing, which I understand, like you want your kids to be able to watch something and not have it be too risque, is like, why does that make you feel uncomfortable? Because if it makes you feel uncomfortable, therefore you don't like it, that doesn't mean other people can enjoy it. So it's like the whole thing of like, hey man, if this is your kink and you like doing that, like, cool, good for you. But we live in this like, and look, I grew up Catholic. I am very well versed in judgment and like sex being voodoo. Yes. Like everything's voodoo. You don't talk about sex. You don't talk about anything. Look, I still have, things that I'm working through with that. But I see that, and people will go to that judgment of like, oh, that's disgusting versus good on you if that's your thing. I'm not saying that about the halftime show. I'm saying like the discomfort, because I'm like, I thought it was great, wonderful. I don't want to like, I'm not trying to reduce it down to like, oh, that's a thing. I'm just saying that the feelings people have broadcast in such a way that cause such division is really what I'm more interested in, of how we can start to think about everything in our life that we may all of a sudden have this snap judgment towards. Because this was a bigger issue than just a halftime show, I think we can do ourselves a really big service by changing our behaviors and thinking a little bit deeper on the conversations we have with people or the assumptions that we make.
I want to bring it all back to the music, because music's healing. Music crosses generations,
music is
cultures,
so healing.
Different populations, communities. It's connection when words fail. It regulates our central nervous system. It helps us feel safe, helps us feel belonging. It increases dopamine for us and decreases cortisol, which is that's the nice point we all want to get to.
Thank you for bringing that back, because we do need to wrap up, and we went all over the place with this discussion only because but that's the beauty of what this halftime show did. I have read so many articles and listened to so many podcasts of it breaking it down, because it was a piece of art that you could just analyze for days. And that is what I think is such a beautiful thing, is for people who love art. I've always found like going to art galleries or listening to music healing in that way, because I love to think about how it does unify us and how it does improve our mood. So
yeah.
But I love that we also could have an hour-long discussion going in 10 different ways about how this how this music and how this performance made us all feel, and how we can be better people, and the criticisms that came with it during a political time. Like, if we weren't in such political distress, this halftime show would not be, I don't think it'd be that big of a deal.
People wouldn't be talking about it still. No.
They might be talking about it, like, you know, in some parts of the country and like at their local coffee shops, but it would not be such a polarizing discussion on podcasts and TV news stories, you know?
We are distressed. We, as a human race, have used music for centuries to help regulate. I mean, do you remember our good old buddy Pythagoras from the Pythagorean theorem from math class? Mm-hmm. Here I'm coming back to my math roots.
I love it.
He used to prescribe scales and music notes to people, as that was like how to get better. That's like the first time music was prescribed was by Pythagoras.
No way.
Yeah.
To feel better.
Yeah. To improve your mood. Yeah. To feel better.
Well, there is a study that's done, and I'm not, we could Google this, but there is a study that's done about classical music shown to decrease depression.
Yeah. There's so much out there. So I just want to say, think about what's your go-to music for regulation, because we are really dysregulated right now, and we're all seeking regulation. And all you got to do is hit your playlist, hit the dial, whatever it is, sing, dance, whatever. But we have the ability to find comfort. You can do that through music.
Yeah, so go listen to your favorite song. I had such a good time watching people having fun. That was the other thing, is I was watching it being like, everyone's having a great time. I was standing in front of my TV dancing, because I was like, again, I didn't know the words either, but I was like, they're having so much fun that I want to have that much fun. And I was just dancing, watching it, and seeing the smiles on people. Yep. Don't get sued. Shh. It was so fun. So at the end of the day, if you can open your heart to look at something and be like, they're having fun. They're having so much fun.
Yay. Let's all have fun.
Let's all have fun.
Let people have fun and be who they want to be and love who they want to be.
Because it's like, and if you have someone in your life who's like really against that, I'd be like, I really want to know how this harms you personally.
Because it's fear related.
Yeah, it is. I know.
They're concerned that they're losing something.
Yeah, and it's morally wrong. I don't know. I don't agree with that. I'm not saying I think that, but I think there are clearly, but the morality, I mean, let's continue this conversation later, but on another show, but morality and like deep-seated beliefs, man, those will get you every time, and they're really hard to break. So,
and people go to therapy for them all the time.
That is what they do. Very emotionally aware people that are trying to be better, or like, I cannot break this pattern no matter how hard I try. That's why we're here. So thank you guys for hanging in there on this very, you know what the discussion felt like? It felt like we were winding through the halftime show stage, because it went to so many different places.
We did.
So
we
started in the sugarcane fields, and then we wound in through the bar, the bodega. We hung out with the construction workers, got some tacos. Like we did do do a lot of different things in this episode.
We did.
So thank you for hanging in. But you know what? It's a piece of art, and we're just going to go with it. So you can contact us, laughcryclub@gmail.com, if you have any specific questions you ever want us to address on the show. We will keep it anonymous, or send us a voice memo, and we can also keep that anonymous if you don't want us to share your voice. We respect that. We are on all the socials at Laugh Cry Club, but most importantly, we are so appreciative of your time listening. We know that you have so many shows to choose from, and we just appreciate you spending the time with us. So we will see you next week.
See you later.